Good.
Hey everybody, how's it going? This is going to be the same group of people, the not guests, as we talked about in the former podcast, or whenever this number is going to be uploaded. I don't know. Either way, who's joining me?
I'm Mike.
And I'm Travis, the one and the only.
Yeah, everyone's favorite.
The way Mike said that was so non-enthusiastic. Who are you? I'm Mike.
I'm just here for my paycheck, dude. Let's get this over with.
Yeah, I'm still grading. Mine bounced. So
Yeah, Nick, come on, buddy. Get it together, please.
Are you guys just here so you don't get fined? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, that's
Marshawn
pretty
Lynch,
much
whatever. All right, cool. Well, either way, we're going to be doing this topic, and it's going to be whether we would want a game series to be either deviating or sticking to its core mechanics. And I know we've talked a lot about them in former podcasts, but so as a general question to everyone out there, my lovely people, Mike and Travis, not just Mike and Travis, what would you guys prefer? Would you prefer for them to deviate from the core mechanics or stick to those core mechanics?
Is it cheating if I said, like, both? Because it's kind of both.
Yeah, it totally depends on...
Just say yes.
Well, for me, core mechanics should not be changed, but I definitely like change to be present. So, like, say a Mario game comes out and they come up with a new power-up. Like, I would like that because you can, have the cat suit climb up walls. It's a new way of playing the game. Whereas if they, like... Let's see, Mario isn't the best example for core mechanic. I honestly don't even know what it is. It's Mario.
It's
Mario.
It's a man with a mustache is the core mechanic.
pretty much.
Yeah.
But, like...
Who isn't a plumber at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I will say, one example that I do have that I kind of thought about is, like, Resident Evil. Because that's something that has changed twice throughout the lifespan of Resident Evil. And I think in that game, they pretty much kept the core the same as far as the survival horror stuff. Where in the original games you're low on ammo, you're sort of in a scary place. It's not scary because there's jump scares, it's scary because you have nothing to survive and people are attacking you and trying to kill you, things like that. That has stayed the same across every game. So that's something they've never changed. They never really became like, I don't know, Call of Duty where you're overpowered, except for one game that got really low ratings. So the one time they really deviated did not work. So they always kept the core mechanics the same, but kind of like you were saying, Travis, it's the stuff on the outside that changed. They went from third person to first person, or they went from an indoor setting to sort of an expansive city setting, or they changed where you flip back and forth between characters, or things like that. So the core of the game never changed, and the theme of the game has always stayed the same. They sort of just changed the outside of it to make the sequel look different. And I think that's the best way to do it, is keep the core the same, but change sort of the branches off of the core.
I would agree.
Yep.
I would agree. But I was going to say, because Mike, you love the series so much, Final Fantasy.
Oh.
So here's one where, again, we bring this up a lot, where since I'm going to try to play as you would usually do, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a little bit.
Oh no.
But so as you would say, if you think about it, again, every Final Fantasy game is pretty different. Again, the first Final Fantasy game, normal, what you would expect, 4-person party, leveling up system, quest to save the world, or whatever. Final Fantasy 2, different leveling up system. Final Fantasy 3, kind of going back and forth, and then we get to Final Fantasy 15, which is kind of like on the cusp of being like an open world kind of game. And depending on which Final Fantasy game you start with, you're going to say that it has different core mechanics.
Exactly.
So
let's
what I'm going to play. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, well, did you have a question for me?
I did have a question for you. Thank you so much for asking that question before I asked my question. So what I was going to say, what if you think the game has different core mechanics? And again, another example that I'm going to use is Travis with Paper Mario Color Splash, because I'm not saying this is like a bad thing, but what I'm saying is that in his mind, the core mechanics of the game are different than what we perceive those core mechanics to be. So obviously we would want a little bit of change while sticking to what we know and what we think really makes the series good. But what if somebody comes in with a different a different version of what the core mechanics are to them?
Right. Well, me and Pat have talked about it before on stuff, and I know I've talked about Final Fantasy 15. I don't like it because, like I listed with Resident Evil the things that I think make it Resident Evil. Now it's Final Fantasy's turn. Final Fantasy is, I don't know if I call it turn-based necessarily, but it's sort of that active time battle thing where it's like You have the timer and you got to do your moves in a certain time, things like that. That's what Final Fantasy is. It's very focused on leveling up and building your team, and it's very story focused. Final Fantasy 15 is one of those things. And the reason is because they totally wanted to change the game to fit, modern day gaming, which was such a cop-out. So they changed their core mechanics because they're like, well, the core mechanics are from 1985, or I don't know when first Final Fantasy was released, but somewhere around that time. And so they're like, well,
a while ago.
Yeah, so they're like, well, I guess our core mechanics are outdated, so we got to change it, which was dumb because Persona 5 has the same type of core, and it's I think it's the best game that came out this year. So they could have worked it, they were just too lazy and did the cop-out thing. That's how I feel. So Final Fantasy did a horrible job of changing the core mechanic because they just wanted to sort of fit a new theme. Now, it is still Final Fantasy in terms of story and stuff, I guess, but when I played if you would have called the game something else besides Final Fantasy, I probably would not have guessed it was Final Fantasy. It had the name of it, and it sort of had it had the deep story. But if you would have called it I don't know, Stars of Talia, or I don't know, that was the dumbest title I came up with.
How about First Fantasy?
Oh my god, that would be a great name for a knockoff series, though, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it?
Yo, Travis, let's get to working on that.
There we go.
Copyright it. There it is.
There we go. No, but if it was something like that, I would have, I don't think I would have called it a Final Fantasy ripoff. That's how different it was from Final Fantasy. I would have said it's just another wacky JRPG game because it was totally different. They have cars. What is this? That was the whole.
Yeah,
focus.
that's true. I saw the car thing and I'm kind of like, what?
I've never seen a Final Fantasy game so obsessed.
Mike, was there an airship?
Was there? Yes. No.
Okay.
Wait, was there?
Wait.
I don't think so. I don't remember.
Because one of the biggest things that I know is a staple of Final Fantasy is chocobos and airships.
And SIDs, and they did have a SID, so that's good.
Okay, good. So either way. So I guess what I'm trying to say is if so many people come into the game series and have a different understanding of what a core mechanic is, then it's going to be kind of hard for game developers to see oh, well, what do we stick with? Do we stick with what modern gamers want, or do we stick with the fans that really stuck with us through all these years? The ones who like this formula, who want more of the formula. But so I guess I'll swing it over to Travis. So Travis, I know you know where me and Mike stand on this completely, and we kind of know where you stand on it as well. So I don't want to go over that. But core mechanics wise, if we had to say a Paper Mario game is, what would you say that? What it is, and that'll lead into my second part of the question.
Colorful and punny storyline.
Mm-hmm.
That's my core mechanic
so
for you.
So the only core mechanic is the story. Okay, trust me, it's fine. I just want to continue it on in the question. So it's just the story.
Yeah, for me it's just the story because you still do all your wacky weird abilities that you'll get randomly throughout going around all the different towns and missions. Then but the thing that's always been true in every single Paper Mario game is that it has a really colorful story, and then they'll always make paper puns, and it's just it's fun.
And the graphics too.
True.
And the graphics.
Well, let's
too.
get deeper here, boys,
Oh,
because did this game
that's what
really
I'm saying.
change its core mechanic? Because it is still turn-based combat. So how deep is the core? Because the combat is still different, even though it's turn-based. I get it's a card mechanic, but it's still turn-based. It's still funny. It still has the same graphic setting. So did it really change its core mechanic?
And then if you want to argue even more there, you can say that Super Paper Mario technically was more of a deviation from the core mechanics because it wasn't turn-based like every other one of the games.
Yeah, now that you bring that up, I totally would say that. So thank you, Nick. You put words into my mouth.
Arguing against myself. I'm doing good, guys.
There you go.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So in my mind, everybody has different understandings of what a core mechanic is to the game and what is very important in the game. And after a while, I'm sure the go-to example that I'm thinking of is Final Fantasy because it's had so many different iterations, or maybe Dragon Quest. What I'm thinking of is that there's obviously it gets to a point where you want them to try to mess with the core mechanics to some extent to try to keep it interesting. But in the case of Paper Mario, when we're talking about the core mechanics being switched, they did it to try to distance itself from a different IP that Nintendo already had, and that was the Mario and Luigi games. And they
Right.
tried to do a little nod. They tried to do a little nod back to that with Mario and Luigi Paper Jam, but I think that just fell flat, and people kind of like no, we don't like this. We want you to give the normal experience kind of gain it like we had in Paper Mario Thousand Year Door and Paper Mario 64.
Right.
Or honestly, even something like Paper Mario, because technically I would say the leveling up system is actually more like Paper Mario or Super Paper Mario to Paper Mario Thousand Year Door and Paper Mario 64.
Yeah.
I've been saying Paper Mario a lot, man.
I know, dude. That like I was, I was listening to you, but the Paper Mario thing got overwhelming to me here. I kind of lost it a little bit there. But I do see your point. I think that's that's why it speaks to the broader question of, we want a game to stick to the core mechanics, but like, do we really know what like the core mechanics of a game is? Because everyone's going to view it differently. And so I think that's the problem that game companies have, is it's like you make a change and someone's going to find a reason to hate that change, because people just don't like change. I think that's fair to say.
Oh, yeah.
The iPhone's update from 10 to 11, everyone hates it before people do it. I do think it sucks still, by the way. But if something changes, or like an interface on Xbox One changes, no one is ever going to say they like it right off the bat. They might grow to like it, but immediate changes, people never like.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing with Facebook, too. Like, every single time when Facebook got an update or, like, a change like that, and they're just like, oh, it immediately sucks. You gotta give it some time. So, what I was saying about Facebook is that people immediately, when Facebook changes, people are always like, oh, no, the new Facebook interface or the Facebook website is different. I don't like it at all. And the Twitch app, as Travis was saying, the reason I don't like the Twitch app is because the layout is layout's very different. It still does the job, but in the way of... I feel like in the way of updating goes, it wasn't like a seamless update on trying to find like the channels you follow or going to the streams that you frequently visit or anything like that.
Right.
So I do agree with you, Mike, that change is, well, for one thing, it's needed. If we had the exact same Mario Bros. Game and there was no innovation whatsoever, we wouldn't have 3D World. Like, that's just a fact. But at the same time, if we didn't have, but at the same time, if we go... What's the right word to say? I don't know what I'm thinking right now. Somebody start talking, because you guys know what I mean, because the core change is not going to be welcomed right away, but I would say time will tell if the change is actually like a good change. So in the way of like Final Fantasy 15, I guess technically we won't be able to tell until maybe a couple years later, or maybe even the new one comes out, to see if the change was really that welcome.
That's
you
true.
never know. It might introduce something new.
Yeah, well, because I think it's like you said too, sometimes change sucks, but sometimes it can turn out to be good. The reason I say, like, especially when we're talking about video games, it's hard to say, like, oh, maybe the Final Fantasy change will be worth it, because the whole idea is that original style Final Fantasy is going to die with that, because they're not going to bring it back later on, so now all of a sudden that style is just dead in the wind. So that, I think, is the problem with doing it with those types of games, is that was like Final Fantasy's unique thing. And so when you take that away, now it's like, well, what's left? Because what's left isn't even really Final Fantasy anymore. It's something completely different. So even, like, Final Fantasy 15 is a fun game. And now we're going back to, like, the new IP thing. But I think if you would have called it something else, it would have been a lot better. But now that you're completely changing what Final Fantasy is, that's what bothers me.
Yeah, so now here's a different question altogether. And this is the one that kind of popped into my head, but it's a good one.
Okay.
So now we're going to go to the path of Sonic.
Uh-oh.
And we're going to go to the path of the core mechanics of Sonic was a 2D hedgehog that beats an evil scientist that goes fast. The difference between Mario and Sonic was that Sonic went fast. Yes, I know there's videos that say technically Mario moves faster or whatever, but the appeal of Sonic was he went fast.
Yeah.
Like, we joke around about it all the time, but that's what it was. Yes, exactly. Sonic's gotta go fast. But then we go all the way to the present day, and we come back to Sonic Mania.
He's not fast.
To be honest, they, like, with all the different variations that they had, kind of the core mechanics were kind of lost for a while, I would say.
No,
yes, there's
totally.
still times where we go fast or whatnot, but yeah, like with Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2, like, even a lot of them are barely even going fast. Like, some of them are shooter levels. Some of them are literally trying to find things, which, again, is a welcome change, but it's not it wasn't a core mechanic on what made it that game. And then, going off of that, we go all the way back, and now nowadays we have Sonic Mania.
Yeah.
So it deviated so much, and it destroyed its core mechanics, and then it went back to its roots.
Yeah, it made a full circle.
it went a full circle. What do you think about that? Do you think that's just going to be a perpetual cycle? Maybe we're at a point in gaming where it's going to start happening like that, where there's going to be a successful formula. They're going to deviate from that so much, and they're just going to recycle it and come back to it. Which honestly, I love Sonic Mania. One of my favorite games.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite like games of the year. I would say arguably it is my favorite game of the year, but it was not meant for modern gamers. So Travis, go.
Okay, so our generation, like, are the ones who like grew up on video games and like we kind of fell in love with it, and then we have like that nostalgic feel to it. And then, like, I know I got sick of Call of Duty once they started putting futuristic crap in it, because I'm just like, this is just stupid, because I'm not, like, I'm jumping over freaking buildings now. Like, there's no safe place.
Right.
So it's like, for me, when they announced that they're going back to World War II, I got super excited because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like something I'm used to. So I think them making that jump to Sonic Mania is more like an appeal to us, since we are a huge market for, excuse me, a huge market for for video games, that they're trying to re-appeal to us, because they started like drifting so far away from like what our norm is, that because like I know I'm starting to play like Borderlands 2, which is a older game, right? It was on the 360.
Yeah.
So it's like that's the game I just started picking up again, because like that's the kind of era that I'm used to and comfortable with, whereas like the stuff that's coming out now, I'm like, maybe. Like the only games I'm excited for really were like the Nintendo games, and since I don't have a Switch, I have to settle.
Well, there you go.
We have to steal a Switch, Travis. I hear there's one in California owned by a guy named Mike.
Man, is that worth it, coming all the way here for that?
Yes, because we steal a Switch. We only have to pay for like a $400 plane ticket.
That's what I'm saying. Just buy your own Switch. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of,
But Mike, then I can have the fortune of like having your memories with me at all time.
What? Because you stole my stuff?
Only thing, okay? Let's try not to make me look like a huge ass here.
What, are you going to take without taking my games?
Yeah, you can keep the games.
Oh, that's just mean. If you're going to take it, take the whole thing. That's just a tease.
Well, okay.
So I have permission now to take everything.
Well, I'm saying if you're going to steal from me, take everything. Don't just stop halfway, please.
Okay, how about this? I'll only steal all of your controllers.
That, I can recover from that. That's a deal.
I don't know. It's like $80 a piece now.
That's yeah, that's a good point.
Well, anyway, so back to the topic.
I
guess.
Thought.
I was gonna say if you have more. Otherwise, I was gonna wrap it up.
Well, I guess I can put my closing thoughts out there, sort of on the Sonic thing.
Okay.
Is that I think Sonic especially, when they deviated from the formula, the games got really, really bad. Like, Sonic Adventure, we can argue whether or not it's good. I think it's good because it's nostalgic, but at its core, it's a terrible game. Sonic Adventure 2...
Oh, absolutely. Objectively, Sonic Adventure was terrible.
We all agree that Sonic the Black Knight is the best one?
Oh, yeah, Travis. I was going to say that's the exception, or that was amazing. But, no, but, like, every game in the middle was just awful. So as soon as they went back to, like, Sonic Mania, I think it got better. I don't think Sonic works well in 3D, I think overall is what it is. Because even Sonic Generations was good, but it was also half 2D, so, you know. So,
I personally loved when I got to play a little bit of Sonic Generations on your PS3, Mike. I personally loved it.
Yeah,
but again, it's for like kind of my audience, not for the modern gamer audience.
Exactly.
Really.
So I don't know. I think if you deviate from the core mechanics, if it's a good game, I think it'll be well received. I think Sonic just was a bad game. So I think that's my closing thoughts.
Okay, Travis, you got something, or else I'll wrap it up.
I think Mike said it. Like, you have to be careful what you are changing, and then if you change it well, it'll be well received. Because, like, Final Fantasy, Resident Evil, they changed a lot, but, like, they did it in a really good way. Because, like, I loved Resident Evil 7. What one did I play when we streamed it? The newest one. That one was really fun.
7.
It was 7? Because that was really fun.
I think so.
And, like, I know if I'm watching Mike play all the other ones that it definitely felt different, but it was still good. because the
Exactly.
story was still there. It was still creepy and eerie, even though like even the zombies themselves were completely different.
Right. Yeah, that's the important thing is if you go from one thing to the next, keep the core the same, but change the little things on the outside. That's all I ask.
So yeah, I would have to say as long as it goes like again, I know Sonic kind of went a little further away, but as long as they just stick with what like people what actually got people interested in the franchise to begin with, I think it's gonna be good if they stick to those core mechanics. So we'll have a good sequel. But otherwise, yeah, if it doesn't do that and if it tries to rehash its formula completely, you got to be prepared to accept the consequences of what people are gonna say, whether they love or hate it, and
For sure.
whether they welcome the change or whether they don't welcome the change. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that. And then as always, there's a comment section below for a reason. Please tell us your thoughts on the issue as well.
Oh, I will.
Okay, well, Chap's going to tell us more thoughts and just spam our comment section. But
All right.
either way, let us know what you think. If you have any topics, put them down there as well.
Yeah.
And see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.